Today we will discuss about three-phase induction motors. Now in this session we will discuss about the construction of three-phase induction motor, the types of three-phase induction motor, that is squirrel cage and wound rotor induction motor, and also we will go through the working principle of a three-phase induction motor. Now to start with, this three-phase induction motor is called as single excited AC machine. Okay, so what is the meaning of this? This means that it is given a supply from a single AC source. That is, that part we can compare it with the transformer. That is, in the case of transformer, there is a primary winding and secondary winding, and we are giving a supply to the primary winding. And by induction, EMF is induced in the secondary winding. The same principle can be applied in the case of three-phase induction motor also. Now, in the case of three-phase induction motor, there is a stator and a rotor, and winding is provided in the stator as well as the rotor. Okay. Now, a three-phase AC supply is given to the stator winding. Okay. So, stator winding is directly connected to a three-phase AC source. So how will the rotor receive the energy, how the EMF will be induced in the rotor? It is by the principle of electromagnetic induction. Okay. So that is the meaning. That is, the stator winding of a three-phase induction motor is connected to a three-phase AC. Okay. And the rotor winding will receive energy from the stator by means of induction. Okay. So that is why you call this motor as induction motor, because the rotor is receiving power through induction. Okay, and it is called a single excited AC machine because we are giving supply only to the stator winding, not to the rotor winding. Okay, now we will move on to the construction of the three-phase induction motor. So any machine, if you take whether it is a DC machine or AC machine, it consists of mainly two parts. One is a stationary part which you call as stator, and the other one is the rotating part called the rotor. Okay, now we will just go through the stator of a three-phase induction motor. Now we will see which are the main components of the stator. Now the stator of an induction motor, it consists of first a frame. You know what is the purpose of using a frame? It provides mechanical support. Then there is a stator core. Okay, then a three-phase distributed winding, two end covers, and ball bearings. The bearings are used for reducing the friction. Now, what is the purpose of using this core? It is a core in which we will be keeping the winding. Okay, and this stator core, it is actually made of lamination, steel lamination. So, what is the purpose of using laminated sheets? It is for reducing the eddy current loss. Okay, now there are two end covers, and these two end covers are made of cast iron. Okay, now the purpose of using the stator frame is just to provide the mechanical support, and it is not expected to carry the flux. The flux will be carried by the winding and it will be confined within the core. Okay, now you can just see a cross-sectional view of the stator of a three-phase induction motor. Here you can see three colors, right? There are three windings. We are providing a three-phase AC supply. So in the stator, there are three windings. You can see here, this red one, we can take it as R phase. Then there is a blue phase. And this can be taken either as yellow phase or green phase. We will take it as yellow phase. This is the blue phase. Okay. So this is another arrangement of the three windings. Now the very important thing is that these three windings in the stator corresponding to the phases R, Y and B, they are displaced by an angle of 120 degrees. Okay, so the angle between these windings will be 120 degrees. Now let's see the details. Now let us see that, let's take the case of the three-phase windings. Let the starting of the winding be R, okay, of the red phase, and then R dash will be the finishing end. Like that, the same convention we can use for blue phase as well as the Y phase. So you have to remember that there are three windings corresponding to the three phases R, B and Y, and these windings are displaced by an angle of 120 degrees. Okay. Now here you can see another cross-sectional view of the winding, stator winding. Now see here, this is the winding corresponding to the red phase. Okay, so this is the starting end of the red phase winding, and this is the finishing end of the red phase winding. Okay, and similarly you can see here the starting of the Y phase winding and the finishing of the Y phase winding. Now here you can see the angle between these two will be 120 degree. Similarly, B is the starting end of the blue phase winding and B dash is the finishing end of the blue phase winding. Okay, so these three windings, we can see that it is displaced by an angle 120 degree. I can draw something like this. See, it will be something like this. Okay, three phase. So you can take it as star connection. Okay, same thing is represented here. Now we will see there are mainly two types in which you can connect the stator winding. One is a star connection and another one is the delta connection. Now this is the star connection. Here you can see that here R is the starting end of the red phase winding, right? And this R dash is the finishing end. Okay, similarly B is the starting end of the blue phase winding and B dash is the finishing end. Similarly Y and Y dash. So we can see that the finishing end of the three phase windings are connected at one common point, which you call it as neutral point. Okay. So now coming to the delta connection. Now in delta connection, what is the difference? R is the starting end of the red phase and R dash is the finishing end. Now you can see that the finishing end of the red phase winding is connected to the starting end of the blue phase winding. Similarly, the finishing end of the blue phase winding is connected to the starting end of the Y phase winding. So this is how delta connection. Okay. Now, next we will move on to the rotor. So what is the rotor, or what are the different parts of the rotor? In rotor also we are providing a winding, and based on the type of rotor, three-phase induction motor can be classified into two types. One is the squirrel cage rotor and the other one is a wound rotor or slip ring. So you can call squirrel cage induction motor or slip ring induction motor. Now another name for slip ring induction motor is wound rotor induction motor. Now what is the difference? In the case of squirrel cage, we can see that there are copper or aluminium bar, which is, what is the purpose of using this copper bar or aluminium bar? For carrying the current. Now the thing is that these copper bars or aluminium bar, they are short circuited at both ends by end rings of the same material. That means there will not be any terminal coming out of the rotor circuit. Okay, so it is something, it looks like something like the cage of a squirrel. That is why you call it as a squirrel cage induction motor. See, we can see here. Suppose if these are the rotor conductors or rotor bar, you can see that it is shorted by two end rings like this. See, you can see that there are no terminals which are coming out of the rotor circuit. That means we cannot control or we cannot insert any external resistance in the rotor circuit. So it looks something like the cage of a squirrel, something like this. See, the rotor conductors, it is completely forms a closed case, something like a closed case. That is why you call it as a squirrel cage induction motor. So now what is the purpose? Because see, now since we cannot insert any external resistance in the rotor circuit, you cannot control the speed of a squirrel cage induction motor from the rotor side. That is one of the disadvantages, but still we are using it. It has got various applications. The reason is it is very simple. Squirrel cage induction motor is very simple, very cheap, okay, and it requires very less maintenance because it doesn't have any slip rings or brushes or any other additional components. Okay, so these additional components, if you are adding, then you need more maintenance and also the cost will also increase. But still squirrel cage induction motors are used where you don't need that much speed control. Okay, because their speed control from the rotor side is not possible. Why? Because there are no terminals coming out of the rotor terminals. the rotor bars are short circuited by two end rings. Okay, so this is the point. Rotor bars are short circuited by the end rings. Okay, now we will move on to the next type of three-phase induction motor, that is slip ring induction motor. So what is the advantage of the slip ring induction motor? So whatever we found the disadvantage in squirrel cage induction motor, it will be rectified here. That means there are three leads or three terminals which are coming out from the rotor circuit, and they are connected to three slip rings. And then carbon brushes are connected to these slip rings, through which we can insert an external resistance in the rotor circuit. You can see it here. Just the rotor winding, it is connected in a star connection. This corresponds to red phase, and this one corresponds to Y phase. The angle is 120 degree, and again this is the blue phase. Okay, so this angle will be 240. Okay, this will be 240, that is angle between red and blue phase will be 240, and the angle between red and Y phase will be 120 degree. Now here you can see that there are three terminals. See here, this is the first terminal, and this is the second terminal. Okay, and from here, this is the third terminal. Okay, so these terminals or three leads from the rotor are connected to three slip rings. You can see this rectangular box, and from there it is connected to a brush, and from the brush it is connected to an external resistor. That means we can vary, by varying the external resistance, we can vary the speed of the motor. That is, speed control from the rotor side is possible in the case of slip ring induction motor. So mostly we will use this type of induction motor when we need a better speed control. Okay, but the thing is that the cost will be more, because we are putting slip rings and brushes, and more maintenance will be required. But still, when we require a better speed control or high starting torque, we will go for this type of motor. Okay, so as I told, there are mainly two types of three-phase induction motors, squirrel cage and slip ring. Now let's have a comparison between these two motors. Okay, first we will take squirrel cage. As I told you, there are no rotor terminals available, so it is not possible to insert any external resistance. But in the case of slip ring or wound rotor motor, there are rotor terminals are available, thereby we can insert an external impedance. Okay, now in the case of squirrel cage, no slip ring brushes. Okay, so no maintenance, whereas in the other motor, frequent maintenance, and of course there will be some problems. Brushes means there will be, of course, some sparking or some other issues can happen, right? And a squirrel cage, when you compare it with slip ring, it is cheaper. Then simple starting accessories. Starting torque is very low, whereas in the case of slip ring induction motor, starting torque is high. A very important difference is that in the case of squirrel cage, since the rotor bars are short circuited by the end rings, no speed control is possible from the secondary side. Okay, whereas it is possible in the case of slip ring induction motor. So this is a comparison between squirrel cage induction motor and wound rotor induction motor. Okay, now suppose if you are asked like what are the advantages of a squirrel cage, you can say that it is cheaper, less maintenance, high efficiency, no risk of sparking because no brushes are available. Now when you see it, compare it with that of slip ring induction motor, of course additional resistance can be connected, which means we can control the speed. The other one is the high starting torque. Okay, so this is about the classification of the types of the three-phase induction motor. Now let's move on to the details of the working principle of a three-phase induction motor. So as we discussed before, it is a single excited machine where the stator winding is connected to a three-phase balanced supply. Okay, so in the stator winding there are three coils, red phase, blue phase, yellow phase, and when the current flows through these windings, of course flux will be created, and the interaction of all these fluxes, that is the flux generated by the current in the R phase, current in the Y phase, and current in the blue phase will create a changing magnetic field, or you can say that it produces a rotating magnetic field. That is very important. Okay, and this rotating magnetic field, the speed at which this magnetic field is rotating, we call it as synchronous speed. Okay, now the synchronous speed is usually represented by the letter ns. and the speed of the rotor is represented by the letter nr. Okay. Now what is the equation or equation for the synchronous speed? The equation for the synchronous speed is given by ns is equal to 120 f by p. What is f? F is the supply frequency of the three-phase AC which we are giving to the stator winding, and P is the number of poles. That means you can control the speed of the three-phase induction motor not only from the rotor side but also from the stator side by changing the frequency. Okay. Now initially the rotor conductors are stationary, right? So what happens is that now you are keeping the stationary rotor conductors in the changing or in the rotating magnetic field. What is the speed at which this magnetic field is rotating? Synchronous speed. Okay, when we keep these rotor conductors in this changing magnetic field, as per Faraday's laws of electromagnetic induction, an EMF will be induced in the rotor. Okay, now the rotor circuit is short circuited, right? Since the rotor circuit is short circuited, when this EMF is induced, current will start flowing through the rotor conductors. Okay. Now, there is an interaction of current carrying conductor in a changing magnetic field. So, what will happen? A torque will be generated. Okay. That is, this is the very important, that is the interaction of the rotor currents with the or the current carrying conductors with the rotating magnetic field will generate a torque, and this torque will cause the rotor to rotate. Okay. Now initially when this rotor is stationary and when it starts cutting the flux, what is the how you can express that? It is P into ns times per second. That is, initially when the flux is the rotating, that is the magnetic field created by the stator winding is rotating, and but the rotor conductors are stationary, right? That time we can see that the flux cut, the rotating flux wave cuts the stationary rotor conductors P into ns times. That is number of poles into synchronous speed initially when the rotor conductors are stationary. But once the rotor starts rotating, what happens? That we will see. Now as I told you, the interaction between the current carrying conductor, that is a current carrying rotor conductor, and the rotating magnetic field will generate a torque which will cause the rotor to rotate. So this is the basic working principle of three-phase induction motor. Now we have to apply Lenz's law. What is Lenz's law? Always the effect opposes the cause, right? So what is the effect? What is the cause? Here the effect is the torque. That is, a torque is developed. How the torque is developed? Due to interaction between the current carrying rotor conductors and the rotating magnetic field. Now what this torque has to do? Now it will try to oppose the cause. What is the cause? Change in flux. Okay. So now the developed torque, it has to do something so as to minimize the change in flux or minimize the flux cutting action. Okay. So this is possible. How? This is possible only if the rotor will try to rotate in the direction of the magnetic field. Let us take the speed of the rotor as nr. So now what rotor will do? Rotor will try to catch up with the synchronous speed ns. Okay. So when it tries to do that, what will be the relative speed? That is ns minus nr. It will reduce because rotor is trying to catch up with the synchronous speed. By doing this, what happens is the relative speed between the rotating flux and the rotor conductors reduces. Okay. So initially what was the flux cutting? It was P into ns per second. Now what happens? The flux cutting action reduces from P into ns to P into relative speed, that is ns minus nr. So the flux cutting reduces. Okay. So for that, what the rotor has to do? It is trying to catch up with the synchronous speed. Okay. So now the flux cutting action reduces from P into ns to P into ns minus nr. Now this ns minus nr, that is the relative change in the speed between the rotating magnetic field and the rotor, we call it as slip speed. Slip speed. Okay. Now we will discuss about the concept of slip later. That is, the rotor will be rotating at a speed slightly less than the synchronous speed, and that you call it as slip. Usually the slip is represented by the letter S and is expressed as a ratio ns minus nr, that is the relative speed or slip speed to synchronous speed. Okay. So by Faraday's electromagnetic induction, EMF is induced in the rotor. Rotor starts rotating. Once it starts rotating, as per Lenz's law, the developed torque will try to oppose the change in flux, so that the rotor will try to catch up with the synchronous speed. Okay. Now let's assume that, suppose if the rotor speed becomes equal to that of synchronous speed, what will happen? That is, Nr is equal to Ns. If the rotor speed becomes same as that of synchronous speed, the relative speed will become 0. Okay. If the relative speed is 0, then there will not be any flux cutting. Okay. So no EMF induced, no current, no torque, and the rotor will come to a standstill. Okay. So in the case of a three-phase induction motor, the rotor speed can never approach the synchronous speed. It will rotate at a speed slightly less than the synchronous speed. Okay, so I hope you understood the working principle now. So just I will explain one more time. That is, when a three-phase AC supply is given to the stator winding of a three-phase induction motor, a rotating magnetic field is generated, okay, which is rotating at a speed given by Ns, that is synchronous speed Ns is equal to 120 F by P. Now, when a stationary rotor conductor is placed in this changing magnetic field, an EMF will be induced in the rotor conductors, current will start flowing. Due to the interaction between the current carrying rotor conductors and the rotating magnetic field, a torque will be generated which causes the rotor to rotate. Okay. Now, as per Lenz's law, the effect has to oppose the cause. Here the effect is the developed torque, cause is the change in flux. So now what the torque will do, due to this torque, the rotor will start to rotate in the direction of the synchronous speed. Let us take the speed of the rotor as Nr. So the rotor speed Nr tries to catch up with the synchronous speed. Okay, so when it starts rotating in the direction of the synchronous speed, the relative speed or slip speed Ns minus Nr will reduce. Okay, when the relative speed reduces, the flux cutting also reduces. Okay, but the thing is that the rotor speed can never become same as that of the synchronous speed, because if it becomes same, the relative speed becomes 0, and thereby there will not be any flux cutting action, and thereby the rotor will come to a standstill. Okay, now the slip is defined as the ratio of the relative speed or slip speed to the synchronous speed. Okay. Next we will see how a rotating magnetic field is produced in the case of a three-phase induction motor. So we know that when a three-phase AC is given to when a three-phase AC is given to the stator winding, current will start flowing, right? So there are three phases R, Y and B. Okay. Now the sum of the currents will be 0 because it is a three-phase balanced voltage which we are giving. Like we can write it as IR, that is a current in the red phase, plus IY, that is the current in the Y phase, plus IB, that is current in the blue phase. This will be equal to 0 because this is a three-phase balanced supply. But what about the flux? The flux created by the current in the R phase, we can take it as phi R. The flux created in the yellow phase, we can take it as phi Y. And the flux created due to the current IB in the blue phase, we can take it as phi B. This will not be, the sum of all these fluxes will not be equal to 0. It will be having a constant magnitude which remains always constant, but it will be changing its position in the space, which you call it as due to the space angle. That is, at each angle we can find the resultant flux. Okay. Now you can see the arrangement. Now this is the flux which is created. Here there is a winding. Okay. Now this is the red phase and the flux created is phi R. And you can see here the yellow phase. Here also we are keeping a winding. And the flux produced in the Y phase, we take it as phi Y. So you can see the angle here 120 degrees. So the angle between R and Y is 120 degrees. So suppose if you are taking the direction of rotation like this, you can say that phi Y or the Y phase is lagging behind the red phase by 120. So what about this blue phase? blue phase will be lagging the red phase by 240. Okay, if we take the direction of rotation in this direction. Now let's try to express equation. Using equation, we will try to express the flux. So as I told, the sum of the currents is not zero, but the sum of the currents will be zero, but the resultant flux will not be zero. That is what is written here. That is, the resultant of the fields produced by the currents is not zero, but the currents in a balanced three-phase system will be zero. Now let's express the equation for the flux in each phase. Let phi r be the flux in the right phase. It is represented as phi m sine omega t. Now what about phi y? Phi m sine omega t minus 120, because as I told you, this y phase is lagging from the red phase by 120. Okay. Now what about the blue phase? It is lagging by an angle 240. Okay. So these are the phi r corresponds to flux in the red phase. Phi y, it is the yellow phase, and phi b is the blue phase. Okay. Now this phi m, you can see here phi m, this is the amplitude of the flux wave. Okay. Now we can represent it using waveforms. You can see it here. If you see here, the red phase is starting from this point 0. Okay. From where this y, the flux corresponding to the yellow phase is starting, it is starting from this point. So this is 120. That is, along the x-axis we are taking the position omega t. What about the blue phase? So if red phase is starting from 0, the blue phase will start from 240. So this point is 240. Okay. So phi r is the flux corresponding to the current in the red phase, phi y due to current in the y phase, and phi b due to current in the blue phase. Now we will be trying to find out the resultant of this fluxes. See, if a flux is something like this, this is not a changing flux, because it is standing in one position. It is not changing from that position. Now what we are going to find is the resultant flux phi r, which is due to the interaction of the three fluxes phi r, phi y, and phi b. Now we will see the resultant flux due to the interaction of all these fluxes, and for that we will consider 3 points, that is 0. First at this position, then at this position, this position, this position. From each position we will analyze this waveforms and trying to find out the resultant flux. We have to prove that its magnitude will remain constant, but its position will change. Then only you can get a changing flux. Okay. So we will just go through that. First we will take omega t is equal to 0. Okay, first let us consider this point, omega t is equal to 0. What is the red phase? Flux in the red phase? This is a 0. You can see from here, this is 0, right? What about the flux blue phase? You can see that blue phase is having some positive value here, right? Okay. What about the yellow phase? Yellow phase is having some negative value. Okay, so from the waveform, we know that phi r is 0, phi y is negative, phi b is positive. Now let's apply this condition, omega t is equal to 0, because at this point if you take omega t is equal to 0, right? So we will put it in the equations. We have 3 equations, right? We will substitute it there. So see, now the equation for the flux phi r is equal to phi m sine omega t. Okay. Now instead of omega t I put 0. So I got it as 0. Okay. Now what is the value of phi y? What is equation for the flux in the yellow phase? Phi y is equal to phi m sine omega t minus 120. Here omega t I put it as 0. So it is sine minus 120 and I get it as minus root 3 by 2 phi m. So in order to calculate the magnitude, we have to take the positive value. So what I do is, since phi y is negative, I will take minus phi y. So phi y is equal to minus root 3 by 2 phi m. So minus phi y will be what? Root 3 by 2 phi 1. Root 3 by 2 phi m. Okay. Next we will see the value of the flux in the blue phase. What is the flux phi b in the blue phase? Phi b is equal to phi m sine 0 minus 240. From where did you get the 0? Because it corresponds to the first point, omega t is equal to 0. And I get it as root 3 by 2 phi m. See here, now we have to calculate the resultant flux phi r, which will be the vector sum of which all fluxes? Phi y and phi b. Why? Because phi r is 0. So you have to find the resultant of phi y and phi b. Now there is an equation for that. that is given by 2 into, okay, resultant flux. If two fluxes are there, we can find the resultant flux, that is using parallelogram method. 2 into magnitude of the flux. What is the magnitude? Root 3 by 2 into 5m. Both the flux in the yellow phase and flux in the blue phase are having the, sorry, this is phi b, okay, this is phi b. This phi r is no, it's okay, this is phi r only, sorry, this is phi r. Okay, so the resultant flux phi r will be the sum of y phase and blue phase, that is correct. Y phase and blue phase, that is correct. Okay, so it will be 2 into root 3 by 2 phi m, that is the magnitude of the flux into cosine of the angle between the two fluxes divided by 2. That angle you will get it as 60, so cos 60 by 2. So when you do this, you will get the value of the resultant flux as 1.5 phi m, which means the magnitude is 1.5. Now this is actually the calculation, that is 2 into, you can see here, 2 into the magnitude of the flux into cosine of the angle. Okay, so here it is very easy to find, because phi r is 0, you have to find the resultant of phi y and phi b. Now I get the phi y magnitude as minus, so that is why I am taking it as minus phi y. Okay, so now we will try to find out using vectors the resultant phi r. So the resultant flux phi r will be the vector sum of minus phi y and phi b. So we will see how to do that. So this is, see here. Now initially we have assumed a reference direction for the fluxes, that is phi r is taken like this, okay, and at 120 degrees I have taken phi y, that is the flux in the yellow phase, and from here again 120 I have taken the blue phase. So this is the actual direction. Now here instead of phi y, because phi y I got it as minus, so I am taking minus phi y. So see here, minus phi y will be in the opposite direction, okay, and its magnitude is root 3 by 2 phi m. Now phi r is 0, okay, you don't have to worry about that. And what about phi b? Phi b is equal to root 3 by 2 phi m. Okay, now I have two fluxes phi b and minus phi y, that is this is phi minus phi y, and this is, I will choose some other color, wait, this is phi y minus phi y, and this is phi b. So now I'm going to find the resultant. How do you find the resultant? It is using making it as a parallelogram, and this will be the resultant vector. See the resultant vector phi r 3 by 2 phi m, 1.5 phi m. Okay, this is how you find for the resultant flux in the position 1, that is omega t is equal to 0. Now here you got the resultant flux in this direction. Okay, now let's move on to the next position. Just let me show you the waveform. Now we will see what will be the resultant flux at this point, because we are analyzing the resultant flux at various points. At point 2 we can see that both red phase and blue phase as well as yellow phase are having values, right? Both red and blue are positive and yellow phase is negative. So we have to find the resultant of 3 vectors. Now let's substitute. So what is the value of omega t at point 2? Here it is 30. Omega t is equal to 30. Here I can write omega t at 0 point, omega t was 0, but here it is 30. So I will substitute in that equations. Now let's move on to the equations. See, now phi r, I put it as phi m sine 30. So it is phi m by 2. Then what about phi y? 30 minus 120, that is minus 90. So again we are getting it as minus. So what I will do? I will take, since phi y is negative, I take minus phi y. So minus phi y is equal to phi m. Okay, now what about the flux in the blue phase? I take omega t as 30, so I get it as minus 210. So I get it as phi m by 2. So here you can see that two fluxes are same in magnitude. Which are the fluxes? Phi r and which one? Phi b. So I can very easily find the resultant of these two fluxes first. So I will take it as phi r dash. Phi r dash. So phi r dash will be the resultant of these two fluxes. So once I find phi r dash, how can I get the total resultant flux? I will add, which is other flux, that is this one, phi y, right? So I will add phi r dash plus minus phi y. Okay. So first let's see how to find phi r dash. So phi r dash will be the vector sum of the two fluxes phi r and phi b. So how will you find? This is the equation, 2 into the magnitude into cosine of the angle between the fluxes. So I will get it as phi m by 2. Okay. Now what I will do? Now to this phi m by 2, I will add phi m. What is phi m? This one. So minus phi y I will add to phi r dash. Then I will get the resultant flux phi r as 3 by 2 phi m. So see here, the magnitude still remains the same. Now let's go through the direction. Okay. Okay, so as I told before, we are not changing the reference direction. This is the red phase, this is the yellow phase, and this is the blue phase. Now as I told before, yellow phase I am taking in the opposite direction because I am taking it as minus phi y. It is equal to phi m. Now what about the red phase? It is phi m by 2. Blue phase is also phi m by 2. Now based on that, I am using parallelogram law. I am using the resultant flux. I get it as what? Phi r dash. See, I got phi r dash. Now to this phi r dash I am adding what? This is minus phi y. So phi r dash plus minus phi y, I will get phi r. See. Now what is the difference here? The magnitude remains the same, but initially in the first position, the resultant flux phi r was like this. Now see the direction, it changed like this. Okay. Now let's move on to the next point, that is point 2 in this diagram. Here the omega t will be equal to this point. Omega t will be equal to 60. Okay, we will analyze that. Now everywhere I am putting omega t 60. So we get phi r is equal to root 3 by 2 and phi y is equal to minus root 3 by 2. Because phi y I am getting it as negative, so I will take here minus phi y. Okay, so minus phi y will be equal to root 3 by 2 phi m, and I have to find the resultant of these two vectors because the phi b is 0. Okay, so the resultant phi r will be the vector sum of phi r and minus phi y. Okay, so I will get this like this, and I am getting the magnitude as 1.5 phi m. So the magnitude is remaining constant. Now let's go through the direction. So this is the red phase. You can see the red phase here, and this is the red phase. Okay, and this is the yellow phase. I have taken it minus phi y, and the resultant you can see here. Okay, so initially the direction was like this, like this, like this. See, the vector is, the resultant flux is rotating. See here, now it will change like this based on the angle omega t. In space it is moving like this. That is how we get a rotating magnetic field. Now we can analyze for one more position, that is a third position where omega t is 90. There we will get three fluxes. That is phi r, we get it as phi m, phi y minus phi m by 2, phi b also. So these two, the flux in the yellow phase and blue phase, we are getting it as negative, right? So instead of phi y, we will take it as minus phi y and minus phi b. First we will find the resultant of minus phi y and minus phi b because both are having the same magnitude. Okay, then we will get it as phi m by 2, and to this we will add red phase flux. So you will get it as 1.5 times phi m. Now let's go through the direction. See here. So we are adding which all vectors we are adding? Minus phi y and minus phi b. Then we will get what? Phi r dash. And to this phi r dash we are adding phi r. So finally what we will get? We will get the resultant flux phi r. So to phi r dash we are adding flux phi r, and we will get the resultant flux phi r. So you can see here the flux is rotating, right? So this is how a rotating magnetic field. So using all these vector diagrams and the equations, we can prove that when a three-phase balanced supply is given to the stator winding of a three-phase induction motor, a rotating magnetic field will be established in space. Okay, so this is about how the rotating magnetic field is produced. So I hope you understood. So we have discussed about the basic working principle of three-phase induction motor, then about the concept of rotating magnetic field, which is very, very important. Also, we discussed about the types of the three-phase induction motors, that is squirrel cage and slip ring induction motors. Hope you got somewhat idea about the topic.